Yes, I'm Sarah Bell, and I'm so happy to be here and see you all. So just like GIS, animation software is complex, and it takes a while to learn. So it's impossible to share every part of animation software in 15 minutes. So instead, I will share 7 key tips that have helped me enter the world of animating maps with Adobe After Effects. And the final 90 seconds is going to be an animated map. Okay, so we're going to move fast. It's going to be slightly technical, but the goal is not to have you memorize these steps. Rather, I just want to share how approachable animating maps in After Effects can be. And also, I'll be sharing a link for this presentation at the end. Did it go? No. There we go. Okay, so what is it? Who uses After Effects? Oh, awesome. Okay. They're all, okay. Don't watch this. Okay, so what is it? After Effects is a digital effects and motion graphics tool used in animation and post-production for film, TV, and games. It supports keying, tracking, compositing, and of course, animation. And you frequently see animations made in After Effects if you consume any of these forms of content. Adobe After Effects is often also used for mapping, especially short animated segments like migration routes, army movements, shrinking ice caps, or expanding habitat boundaries. And these are classic post-production examples. Now, the term post-production might sound like simple touch-up work, but in this workflow, After Effects can play a big role in your map's overall design. The map you're seeing now is one I created building the flyover in ArcGIS Pro, and then I used After Effects to animate the bar chart and the point symbols that you see popping up. This is Index, Washington, a great climbing crag. So when using After Effects to visualize this change over time, this is the workflow that I typically follow. I start in ArcGIS Pro to add data layers, set map layout extents, and perform analyses. And then I export the layout as an AIX file and open it in Adobe Illustrator using the ArcGIS Maps for Adobe extension. Illustrator is where I handle most of the graphic design and reorganize any layers that I need to suit my animation needs in After Effects. And once the Illustrator file is organized and aesthetic, I import it into After Effects. So let's start with tip number 1. Tip number 1 is that storyboarding your animation vision is very important for executing a successful map. This is very true. You'll see why in a moment, but I highly recommend starting with the storyboarding. Storyboarding also includes tip 2, understanding layers and keyframes in After Effects. In After Effects, layers can dynamically change, and keyframes are what you use to indicate when and how they change. After Effects layers work a lot like GIS and Illustrator layers. I'll highlight some of the nuances as we go, but not all of them, because we only have 15 minutes. The timeline is where you set the duration of your project and points on the timeline when the animation occurs. Individual layers have properties that you can animate, and this is things like position, scale, opacity, and many, many other properties. And to animate a layer's property, you add a keyframe at the point on the timeline when you want the property to change. Sorry, there's water. Okay, so here's what that would look like if you wanted to animate the opacity property for this parks layer. Typically, when you add a layer to the timeline, the layer's default opacity is 100%. If you wanted to change the opacity of the parks on your map from 100% to 0% over the span of 2 seconds, and if you wanted this animation to begin at the 2-second mark, first you would add a keyframe to the 2-second point on the timeline, and you keep the opacity at 100%. Then you move the current time indicator, shown as this blue vertical line, to the 4-second mark, and add a second keyframe, then update the opacity to 0%. Okay, so that procedure, would mean that your parks would fade away from your map over the span of 2 seconds like this. 1001, 1002. But look, the labels are still there, and that is because we only added the animation to the park polygon layer. That leads to tip 3, copy and paste keyframes. To To add that same fading opacity animation to the park labels layer, I should have brought my mouse up here. You add keyframes to the identical points to that layer on the timeline, then select the keyframe with the properties you want to copy and press Control-C or Command-C to copy, and then select the keyframe that you'll paste the properties into and press Control-V or Command-V to paste. You can do scripting in After Effects, and this is one of the maps that I made when I did use some scripting. Scripting in Adobe After Effects involves using ExtendScript, a JavaScript-based language, to extend the functionality of the software. I won't dive into any scripting today, but I'll share a great resource at the end for anybody who's interested. That said, you don't need to do any scripting in After Effects to make a very powerful map. And for this reason, the map I'll share at the end uses no scripting. I'm going to take a drink of water. This happens every time. All right, so tip 4 is to set up your GIS map to align with your animation objectives. And so you'll want to consult your storyboard. This is my ArcGIS Pro project for a Bellingham Bay Marathon animation. Just note that I have most layers turned off, and that's just for your visual harmony for this demo. Since my final map includes a small scale and a large scale animation phase, I created 2 layouts in Pro that you see here for phase 1 and phase 2. Both layouts are 1920 by 1080, and that will match up the same composition that I set up in After Effects. So I've added all the layers for both phases to this map project because it fits my animation goals, but it might not fit yours. And when exporting each phase, I only turned on the layers I wanted for that phase. And in both phases, I have this vector base map. And here's a little peek at phase 2 with that same base map, as well as the marathon route turned on. So remember, many layers were exported with this. I just have them turned off for this demo. I exported the phase 1 and phase 2 as AIX files. The next step is to open the AIX file in Adobe Illustrator, so you will need Maps for Adobe installed. And this view is my phase 2 AIX file when I first opened it in Adobe Illustrator. And you can see that there are many other layers in addition to the vector tile base map layer. You'll also notice the Illustrator layer structure matches the layer order that I set up in ArcGIS Pro, and this is all thanks to ArcGIS Maps for Adobe. Tip 5 is to organize your Illustrator layers to fit your map animation objectives. So you want to consult that storyboard once again. ArcGIS Maps for Adobe is great for consuming AIX files for so many reasons. Among them is layer organization retention. However, if you plan to animate layers or sub-layers individually, you may want to restructure some layers accordingly. In my first example, we'll use the mile markers to demonstrate. If my vision is to have these mile markers animate as one single unit, for example, how their scale is changing as one unit here, then I would want to keep them all within one single mile markers layer. This is exactly what I want, just like this. However, if I wanted to animate the mile markers individually, the way to do this without coding is to create individual layers for each point. And now that sounds like a lot of layers, right? You have 26 mile marker points plus the start and finish, but it's actually very manageable in After Effects, and I'll share that in a moment. The very first step is in Illustrator. You can instantly put all of these mile marker points into their own individual layer simply by selecting that layer's artwork and then selecting Release to Layers Sequence from the layer menu options. Another important example of layer organization, if you plan to animate in After Effects, is to get rid of nesting like this for any layers that you intend to individually animate. So if I was just going to have these layers sit within my animation, excuse me, and either never animate or when they do so as one unit, then this is exactly what I want. But if I wanted the capacity to animate my parks, cities, counties, and states independently, then in Illustrator, I would simply drag those artwork layers outside of their parent layers. And this would leave me with this layer structure for those 4 layers. So they're not nested anymore. Okay, here we go, After Effects. This is not always, but this is typically how I import my Illustrator artwork into After Effects. After opening After Effects, I first click New Composition, and this gives you a window for your composition settings, like name, size, frame rate, and duration. And after clicking OK, you'll import your Illustrator files from the File menu. And I typically import as composition and keep the Create Composition box checked. Importing an Illustrator file simply places that file into the project pane where each layer, determined by how you organized it in Illustrator, can be found. At this point, you can drag each individual layer onto the timeline. And since I set up my ArcGIS Pro layout to be the same size as this After Effects composition, the layers snap into perfect alignment. So here's a little peek at the layers from my phase 1 after I dragged them onto the timeline. It seems like a lot of layers, but it's very manageable in After Effects, and one of the reasons is because of the pre-compose feature, which is tip number 6. Remember how the idea of having 26 layers for each individual mile marker sounded daunting? But it was necessary because I wanted to animate each individual point. So here are those mile marker points, plus their labels. Once I had the animation for these exactly how I wanted, I simply select them all at once, and then right-click to get a menu from which I choose Pre-Compose. And this nests multiple layers into a single new composition, which then appears as a single layer on the original timeline. And the last tip is create shapes from vector layers. This is very useful. Actually, some of the first few maps I made, I didn't know about this, and when I discovered it, it changed my world. If you want to enhance the animation capabilities of your layers, or if you want to continue editing the appearance of your vectors in After Effects, you're going to want to do this. So notice when I drag the marathon route layer onto the stage, it has a 1920 by 1080 bounding box, which is great for aligning the route perfectly in my map. But I wanted to do some visual effects on this route in After Effects that this does not allow for. To gain access to those features, I right-click on the marathon route layer in the timeline and select Create Shapes from Vector Layers, and this converts vector artwork file into editable shape layer, allowing you to do all of those wonderful things, manipulate it, add effects that you couldn't before. And this is my phase 1 when it was done in Illustrator, and now I'm going to try to long distance play a map. So hold on one second. Oh, sweet. Spacebar? I think if I hit spacebar, you should hear a map.
Bellingham, Washington is a gorgeous city located about 22 miles from the US-Canada border. The city has almost 100,000 residents and is on the western edge of Whatcom County, where it serves as the county seat. Whatcom County is about 2,500 square miles and has a population of just over 230,000 residents. Bellingham Bay's location in the Salish Sea keeps the marathon course near sea level. Official race organizers describe the route as mostly road with stretches of urban trail. The race starts at the Lummi Nation School. The finish line is in downtown Bellingham in front of Depot Market Square. Only about 7.5 miles of this marathon occurs within the city of Bellingham. As a near sea level race, the Bellingham Bay Marathon doesn't have much elevation gain or loss over its 26.2 mile stretch. First, nearly 12 miles of the race occur within the Lummi Nation, beginning with a stride along the western coast of the Bellingham Bay. Much of this section occurs within the Nooksack River Delta, where it continues for the next few miles. The route skirts around the Bellingham International Airport and then finally enters the city of Bellingham for the remainder of the race. As with all marathons, if you are planning to participate in the Bellingham Bay Marathon, it is wise to familiarize yourself with the route's hydration and medical stations. Race organizers and volunteers run many hydration stations placed along the route where runners can quench their thirst, as well as several medical stations. Thanks for watching and enjoy the race.
Okay, I should also mention I did build that elevation profile in Pro as well. And so thank you very much. This QR code will bring you to all the resources that I mentioned. There's some inspiration that inspires me. And you can, that top link is one of the things, cerebellmaps.com. You get this presentation without me coughing throughout all of it. And if you want to download ArcGIS Maps for Adobe, that's that second link down there. And we can connect on Blue Sky and Instagram. Thank you.